The show opens at a subway station in Madrid, where a man watches another man waiting by the tracks. Shortly after, he's approached by a mysterious girl named Duna, who tells him he has to kill the person who wronged him and his family. The man asks who she is, and Duna responds, "Just someone who doesn't want you to suffer." Persuaded by the girl's disturbing words, the man suddenly gets up and pushes the other man onto the subway tracks just as the train passes. In the next scene, we meet our protagonist, Valeria, a high school student who is currently in class. It turns out she has been getting terrible grades lately, so the teacher tells her to call her parents. Afterward, Valeria leaves the school with her friends when she notices a hooded man watching her. She tells her friends about him, but the hooded man instantly disappears. Upon returning home, Valeria tells her parents about an upcoming party she wants to attend. However, they refuse right away, as they're angry about her declining grades. Valeria and her mother then get into a heated argument that ends when her mother slaps her hard. As a result, a frustrated Valeria heads out and spends the entire day sitting on a park bench, fuming with anger. As night falls, a mysterious woman named Iris appears and asks her what's wrong. Valeria explains that her parents won't let her go to the party and that the boy she really likes will be there. Then, in a shocking turn, Iris urges her to kill her parents so she can live life on her own terms, but Valeria doesn't take her words seriously. Later, she finally returns home, and we notice her eyes turn black, revealing that Iris's influence has taken hold. Suddenly, Valeria grabs a kitchen knife and brutally murders her parents. Meanwhile, Iris stands outside the house, looking satisfied as she listens to the parents' screams fade into silence. Moments later, Valeria finally snaps back to reality and is horrified by what she's done. She panics and leaves a voicemail for her best friend, frantically confessing her actions. She then tries to flee the town, but can't get a bus ticket at that hour. Exhausted and terrified, she falls asleep on a platform bench, only to be approached by a group of thugs. When they threaten her, Valeria says she doesn't care if she dies. However, before the thugs can hurt her, the hooded man from earlier suddenly appears and stops them. When they try to attack him, he uses his supernatural powers to throw them away and scare them off. Afterward, the mysterious man removes his hood and introduces himself as Natiel. He explains that she is a Malak, meaning an angel. Natiel tells Valeria that he can bring her parents back and give her a second chance, but only if she agrees to serve the forces of good. He then hands her a purple celestial book, and as she takes it, time rewinds. Moments later, Valeria wakes up in her bed, relieved to discover that her parents are still alive and that everything she did never happened. The news reports the death of the man in the subway, and shockingly, Valeria is the only one who can see Duna, who was with the murderer. Meanwhile, at a supermarket, a woman named Alexis is caught stealing and has to face Lorenzo, the head of security. He threatens to call the police, but she doesn't seem the least bit afraid and begins seducing him. Later at school, Valeria's friend shows her the voicemail she left last night, but Valeria brushes it off as nothing. Her teacher then asks her to translate a text, and to everyone's shock, Valeria speaks Latin perfectly all of a sudden. Later, Damián approaches her, and it turns out he can also speak perfect Latin. We also learn that the boy Valeria has a crush on is none other than Damián, and she apologizes to him for not being able to attend the party that weekend. At the same time, a boy named Julio is relentlessly bullied by some kids at school, who demand that he give them 100 euros. The terrified boy insists he doesn't have the money, but they refuse to take no for an answer. At home, Julio begins stealing his mom's money, but she catches him in the act and scolds him. Just then, his dad, who turns out to be Lorenzo, arrives home. The mother complains about their son's behavior, but Lorenzo angrily yells at his wife and throws her purse into the water. Elsewhere, we learn that Alexis, Duna, Iris, and another man named Graziel are like a family and live together. But in reality, they turn out to be fallen angels and servants of Lucifer, tasked with spreading evil in the world and pushing people to commit murder. The next day, Lorenzo and Alexis are seen sleeping together, and he complains about having trouble at home because of his wife and child. She begins to poison his mind and urges him to kill his family, claiming they are nothing more than a burden. At first, Lorenzo finds this ridiculous, but it becomes clear that he is starting to be manipulated by her. Meanwhile, at school, Julio has had enough of the bullying, so he heads to the top of the roof and tries to end his life in front of everyone. Upon seeing this, Valeria is horrified and also runs to the roof, trying to convince the boy to back out. He refuses and jumps anyway, during which Valeria suddenly uses her angelic powers to float in the air and manages to save the boy. When Valeria returns home, her mom apologizes for their earlier fight and finally allows her to attend the party, which makes her very happy. Elsewhere, Lorenzo returns home and brutally beats his wife and son, leaving them covered in bruises. That night, Valeria arrives at the party, but she's stunned to see that Damián already has a girlfriend, Miranda, which breaks her heart. Yet he still shows interest in Valeria, which leaves her confused. Soon she notices Iris in the distance and immediately follows her outside. Valeria asks who she is, but Iris gives no clear answer and aggressively pins her to the ground. She then tries to kill Valeria, but suddenly Damián shows up, forcing Iris to finally leave. The next morning, when Valeria wakes up, Natael visits her and explains who Iris really is. He also tells her that she must prepare to fight against her and the other fallen angels. But Valeria doesn't believe that she is an angel, since she has no wings or powers and has no idea how to help people. Natael thus simply asks her to start by reading the Celestial Book. That afternoon, Alexis finally convinces Lorenzo to murder his family and gives him a gun before driving him to the house. Elsewhere, Valeria senses that Julio is in danger and quickly rushes to save him. When Lorenzo arrives, he aims the gun at his family and tries to pull the trigger, but Valeria uses her powers to remove all the bullets. But the aggressive man still manages to punch her in the nose and knock her unconscious. Sometime later, Valeria wakes up in the hospital with a broken nose, and the doctor informs her that Julio's family is safe since the police arrived in time. She is then visited by Natael, who praises her for successfully completing her first mission and also heals her broken nose. Elsewhere, we see the fallen angels not far away, who soon meet up with Damián. It turns out he is also part of their evil gang, and Alexis gives him the task of seducing Valeria and corrupting her so she will become a fallen angel like the rest of them. The next day, Valeria opens the Celestial Book, and an image of a dolphin appears, which she doesn't understand. The scene then cuts to a water park inside a zoo where we see a young deaf woman named Lucia taking care of the dolphins. She is visited by her boyfriend Sergio, who promises to meet her at the exhibit. However, she feels a bit jealous when she notices his affectionate treatment of another attendant, Barbara. Later, Barbara introduces Lucia to a dolphin specialist, who turns out to be none other than Gracielle. It turns out that one of the dolphins has become depressed ever since a new one arrived, so Gracielle comments that maybe it's just jealousy. Meanwhile, at school, Valeria continues to see signs of dolphins, so she urges her friends to visit the zoo, and they agree. At the same time, Gracielle begins spending a lot of time with Lucia and reveals how he was recently cheated on by his partner. He then tries to poison her mind about her own boyfriend, and it seems to start working. Elsewhere, we see Barbara and Sergio at a mall, where he shares his plans to propose to his girlfriend, which delights Barbara as well. In the afternoon, Gracielle brings Lucia to the same mall, where he continues talking about cheating. She then looks into the distance and notices Barbara trying on a ring with Sergio, which shocks her. Meanwhile, Valeria is still at the zoo watching the fish when she is approached by Natael again. He informs her that a woman named Lucia is in danger and that she must hurry up to save her. On the other hand, Gracielle steals the ring Sergio had bought and engraves Barbara's name on it. Soon, Lucia finds the ring with the name, which fills her with anger, and finally convinces her that her boyfriend is cheating on her. Later, an exhibition takes place at the water park showcasing dolphin stunts, where Valeria and her friends are also present. Valeria soon learns that one of the dolphin trainers is named Lucia, so she doesn't waste any time and follows her to the locker room. She introduces herself and warns Lucia that her life is in danger and that she must be very careful. But before she can say more, Damián arrives and takes her away. After the exhibition, Sergio approaches his girlfriend to propose, but she angrily slaps him and walks away. The next day, we see Lucia and Sergio at a mall where he gives her the ring, which surprisingly no longer has the engraving. He apologizes if he has done anything wrong, and she seems to forgive him. However, as he steps away, Lucia notices Sergio's phone is filled with several romantic messages from Barbara, which were actually sent by Gracielle. Later, Lucia confronts Barbara about the messages, but the latter makes it clear that she has no romantic relationship with Sergio. In fact, Barbara seems to be interested in Lucia instead and just wants to see her happy. Lucia appears convinced by this, but Gracielle soon approaches her again to poison her mind and urges her to finish Barbara. Meanwhile, at home, Valeria senses that something bad is about to happen and rushes to the zoo. There, we see Lucia stalking Barbara and proceeding to attack her with an axe. She almost manages to kill the woman, but at the last moment Valeria arrives and stops her. Despite being deaf, Lucia can hear Valeria clearly, and the angel advises her not to succumb to evil and to listen to her heart. In the end, Lucia finally drops the axe and leaves, and Valeria believes the danger is averted. While heading home, she's approached by Damián, who charms her with sweet words and gives her a ride. Later, Alexis is seen very upset about the turn of events, so she arrives at the zoo and possesses one of the dolphins. Lucia is seen swimming at the pool while looking very tense and confused. Sometime later, Valeria is at home when she hears on TV that Lucia has tragically died after a dolphin suddenly attacked her. According to the report, the dolphin was jealous because a new dolphin had arrived, and Lucia was giving it more attention. This news deeply breaks Valeria, who throws the Celestial Book in the trash and breaks down in tears. Days later, we see Valeria's mom, Laya, enjoying a night out partying with her work colleagues. As the evening drags on, she finally says her goodbyes and starts heading home. On the way, a biker pulls up next to her at a stoplight and asks her out for a drink. Laya politely refuses, explaining that she is married and that her family is waiting for her at home. Not long after, Laya suddenly loses control of her car and crashes into someone. To her shock, it turns out to be the same biker, now lying unconscious in the road. The panicked woman immediately calls for an ambulance, but we see that the man is still conscious and opens strange demonic eyes. The next morning, Valeria notices that her mom is very tense and asks what happened, but Laya doesn't say anything. Elsewhere, Damián goes to meet Iris and Alexis, who begin beating him for doing a crappy job in seducing Valeria. Their plan is to destroy her from within and make her evil, so they are now targeting her family members. Damián assures them he will do his job, after which the two women begin kissing and making out with him. Elsewhere, we see the biker guy at the hospital, and Laya arrives to check on him, revealing that she is a doctor. He immediately begins flirting with her again and tries to seduce her, but she once more refuses and walks away. Later, while he is alone, the biker guy leaves his room and goes to visit a nearby patient, who is an old man. He removes the man's oxygen mask and attempts to kill him, but just then, a male nurse arrives and yells at him to leave. Afterward, Laya finds the biker guy snooping in her office, which makes her extremely angry, but he suddenly begins inappropriately touching her and uses his demonic powers to lock the door. The man then aggressively kisses her for several minutes and finally renders her unconscious before setting up his camera. Not long after, Laya is in her office, sleeping naked, when another doctor arrives and is shocked to see her in that state. Laya quickly apologizes, explaining that she was just napping, and heads to work. Later, she prepares to perform surgery on the old man from earlier, whom the biker had tried to kill. But due to the evil man's influence, she finds it very difficult to focus and walks out in the middle of the surgery, leaving a novice doctor to handle the situation. The next day when Laya returns to work, her co-worker informs her that she made a serious mistake and the old man's condition has become critical. To make matters worse, the old man's daughter, who is a lawyer, has decided to file a negligence case against her. Laya wants to perform a second operation to save him, but her senior tells her that she has been fired. On the other hand, Valeria arrives at Damián's home, and they hang out in his room. She then notices him playing a song, which she instantly recognizes. She becomes sad and reveals that it was sung by her older brother Rudy, who went missing a year ago. Damián then pretends to be saddened by the news and comforts her. Later, Valeria arrives at the hospital to meet her mom, but she's approached by the male nurse from earlier, who is actually an angel. He tells her about her mom's situation and asks her to help her. Valeria doesn't know how to help, so he asks her to read the celestial book. She tells him she has thrown it away, but he assures her that if she truly wants it, the book will come to her. That night, Valeria searches for the book in the trash when she is suddenly shocked to see her brother Rudy, which makes her very emotional. They hug each other and share a brief chat, after which he begins manipulating her, asking her not to look for the book and to join him instead. Valeria obviously refuses because her parents need her, but we soon realize that Rudy is actually Damián in disguise. He eventually disappears, leaving Valeria broken and in tears. The next morning, she wakes up and finds the celestial book by her side, which relieves her. She opens it to read about some powers and soon becomes invisible. Later, she approaches her parents and uses her powers to make her dad forgive her mom. When Laya arrives at the hospital, she asks for a second operation to save the old man's life, but her senior obviously refuses. Laya begs to be allowed to perform this last operation, saying they can fire her afterward regardless of the outcome. Her senior is still hesitant, but Valeria uses her powers and eventually changes her mind as well. Afterward, Laya is seen performing surgery when suddenly the biker man appears nearby and tries to possess her. She panics and attempts to leave in the mid-operation, while her daughter does her best to help her. Fortunately, the male nurse returns to take the biker away and engages him in a fight. He eventually manages to defeat the evil man and eliminate him, after which Laya regains her composure and returns to normal. Soon enough, the operation proves to be a success, and Valeria later approaches the male nurse to express her gratitude. Fortunately, Laya regains her job, as she's one of the best surgeons in the hospital. The episode concludes with Valeria enjoying a warm dinner with her family that evening, laughing and savoring a rare moment of peace after all they have endured. Don't forget to subscribe and leave 250 comments or 1,000 likes for the next part.